Hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. In which we are going to learn another concept in Python called loops. Loops helps us to make a task correctly instead of writing simple code again. Imagine you want to print hello 100 times without loops. You have to write the same statement 100 times, which is very time consuming and not practical. Only for spacing. You can write just few lines of code and Python will repeat the task for you. That's why loops make our program shorter, cleaner, and more efficient. This lecture, we learn how loops work, when to use them, and how they help us solve real-world programming problems. We will study the two main types of loops in Python. The for loop, which is used when we know how many times we want to repeat a task. The while loop, which is used when we want to repeat a task until a condition becomes false. So which are the two loops? The for loop and the while loop. Now we also learn how the functions inside the nested loops and control statements like date, continue, and pass. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to write once, repeat tasks correctly, and make the technical much more powerful. So without wasting our time, we move on to the next slide, which is just a small recap of the previous lecture. What we have learned in this lecture of conditional statement. If you have not seen that lecture, you can go to the previous lecture, watch that, and then you can. So we have on the next slide, which is the recap of the previous lecture. So before we begin today's topic, let's quickly revise what we have learned in the previous lecture. So in the previous lecture, we studied conditional statements. What are conditional statements? They are program made based on different results. Let's quickly revise the main concepts. First, we learn about the if statement. What is the if statement? The if statement executes a block of code only when a condition is true. If the condition is false, Python simply skips that block. Next, we learn about the if-else statement. This statement is used when there are two possible outcomes. Either the condition is true or the condition is false. If the condition is true, the if block executes, otherwise the else block executes. After that, we studied the if else statement. This is the useful when we need to check multiple conditions. Python checks each condition one from top to bottom. As soon as one is given, so it executes that block and skips the remaining condition. Then we learn about the nested statement. So nested means writing one if statement inside the other if statement. It is useful for solving more complex decision-making problems. We also wrote practice programs and solved real-life examples such as checking voting eligibility and pass or fail conditions. These examples helped us understand how conditional statements are used in real application. So, the key takeaway from the lecture 6 is that conditional statements allow our program to make a smart decision based on different conditions. Now that we have refreshed these concepts, we are ready to move to today's topic. In this lecture, we will learn about loops which help us repeat tasks efficiently instead of writing the same code again and again. So let's start with loops in Python. Now let's understand what loops are. A loop is a programming concept that allows us to repeat a block of code multiple times until a condition is met for a specific number of times. Instead of writing the same code again and again, we simply write it once inside a loop, and Python repeats it automatically. This makes our program much shorter, cleaner, and easier to manage. Now, why loops are used? So, there are three main reasons that why loops are used. First, to avoid writing the same code again and again. For example, if you want to print hello without loop, you have to write like this. But a loop can do the same code within a few lines. Second, Loop helps us save time and reduce the length of our program. Less code means fewer chances of making mistake. Now, if the code is longer, the chances of mistake will be high. If the code is shorter, the chances of mistake will be low. Now, third, the loops help us automate repetitive tasks. Whenever the same action needs to be performed multiple times, loops are the best solution. Now, what are the benefits of loops? Let's look at some important benefits of loops. The first benefit is saving time. Loops automatically repeat tasks without requiring us to write duplicate code. The second benefit is readable code. Programs become shorter, cleaner, and easier to understand. Now, the third benefit is improved accuracy. Since we write the code only once, the chances of making typing mistake are much lower. Finally, loops improve efficiency. They can handle repetitive tasks quickly even if they need to repeat hundreds of thousands of times. Now some real life examples. Loops are not just used in programming. We can also see similar examples in our daily life. Think about the alarm clock. You can see I have given some examples. Think about the alarm clock. It rings every morning at the same time until you turn it off. A traffic signal. It also works on loop. It continuously changes from red to yellow to green and then repeats the cycle. A washing machine repeats different stages like washing, rinsing, spinning automatically. Another simple example is sending the same message to multiple people. Instead of writing the message again and again, a program can use a loop to send it repeatedly. In short, loops help us repeat actions, save time, reduce code, and solve problems more efficiently. They are one of the most useful concepts in programming, and you will use them in almost every real-world problem. Now that you have understand what loops are and why they are important, let's move on to learning and different types of loops in Python. Now let's talk about the for loop, which is one of the most commonly used loops in Python. A for loop is used to repeat a block of code by going through a sequence one item at a time. So what is a sequence? The sequence can be list, tuple, string, or range. The for loops take each value from the sequence and executes the same block of code for every value. Now let's first understand the syntax. So this is the syntax of the for loop. Here the variable stores one value from the sequence at a time. The sequence is the sum of values that we want to iterate over. The code written inside the loop is called the block of code returns once for every item in the sequence. Remember, just like conditional statement, indentation is very important in Python. The code is must be properly indented. Now let's understand for loop how a for loop works by this flowchart. The program starts by selecting the first item from the sequence. After that, Python checks whether more items are available or not. If yes, it moves to the next item and repeats the same process. When all the items have been processed, the loops end automatically. This process continues without writing the same code again and again. Now let's see a simple example. You can see here for I in range 1, comma, then a gap 6, colon, then here it is a proper indentation, then print I. Here range 1 to 6 generates the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Notice that 6 is not included because the ending value range is always excluded. Let me clear it. Okay. The variable I becomes first 1, then it becomes 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Each time Python executes the print I statement, so the output will be this. The loop automatically stops after printing 5 because there are no more values left in the sequence. Now, the important point is that the for loop is the best choice when we already know how many times we want to repeat the tasks. It makes our program shorter, cleaner, and much easier to understand. Now, in the next slide, we will learn about another important loop in Python called the while loop, which is used when we do not know in advance how many times the loop should learn. Now let's learn about the range function, which is one of the most useful functions used with the for loop. The range function generates a sequence of numbers. Instead of writing numbers manually, we can use range to create them automatically. It is mostly used with for loops because it tells the loop how many times it should repeat. Now, the first is range and stop. Here is the syntax. This generates number starting from 0 up to stop minus 1. Means if you can see that if here it is 5, then the number will be from 0 to 4. If here it will be 6, the number will become 0 to 5. Now second, range, start and stop. It is the second form. Here we can choose both the starting and the ending values. For example, range to 6. It means the range will start from 2 and it will be end at 6 minus 1. Again 6 is not included. So the output will be 2, 3, 4, 5. This is useful when we don't want to start or continue from 0. Now the third form is range, start, stop and step. This tells Python how much to increase or decrease the number each time. For example, you can see that here it is written range 1, 10 and 2. So here the number increased by 2 and the number will go till 10 minus 1, 9. So 1, then a gap of 2, skip 3, 4, skip 5, 6, skip 7, like this. And you can see here a second example 10, 1 minus 2. It is used to print backwards because the step is minus 2, the number decreased by 2 by each time. So a positive step moves forward while a negative step moves backward. There are few important points to remember. The stop value is always excluded. The step value can be positive or negative, but it cannot be zero because Python would not know how to move the next value. Also, the range function returns a range object which the for loop reads one value at a time. For example, now you can see example for I in range 1 to 6 print I. You can see this example for I in range 1 to 6 print I. Here range 1 to 6 generates the number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The variable I take one value at a time during each iteration. Python executes this so the output will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After printing 5, there are no more values in the range, so the loop automatically stops. So the range function is a simple and powerful way to generate numbers for a for loop. Just remember these three forms. Range stop starts from 0. Range stop starts from any value you want to choose. And the third range stop step moves according to the step value. In the next slide, we will continue learning about loops in another important concepts in Python. Moving on to the next slide. Now let's learn about another important loop in Python called the while loop. Unlike the for loop, which is generally used when we know how many times we want to repeat something, the while loop keeps running as long as a given condition is true. It checks the condition before every iteration. If the condition becomes false, the loop immediately stops. Now, let's first understand the given syntax. While, wait a minute, while condition and then you will write here the block of code. Here Python first checks the condition. If the condition is true, it executes the block of code. If the condition is false, the Python will give the output. One very important thing to remember is that we must update the condition inside the loop. Otherwise, the loop may never stop. This is called an infinite loop, which is usually a programming mistake. Now, let's understand the example given here. You can see the example count is equal to 1 while count less than equal to 5, print count and count is equal to 5 plus 1. Initially, the variable count is equal to 1. Python checks the condition is count less than equal to 5 or not. Then Python checks since 1 is less than 5, the condition is true, then Python will print true. Then the last statement count is equal to count plus 1. Now the value of count is 1, so it will come here. Now if 1 is equal to 1 plus 1, so it will be 2. So now the value of count will be 2. Now Python again checks is 2 less than equal to 5. So yes, 2 is less than equal to 5. Then Python will print here 2, like you can see here. Now the same process, and here the value of count is 2, 2 plus 1, 3. Now the value of count is 3. Similarly, the Python will print then 5. Now the value of count is 5, so 5 is less than or equal to 5. So 5 is equal to 5, so Python will print 5. Now the value of count will be 6. So now the value is 6, so Python will check with 6 less than or equal to 5, so the statement is false. 6 is not less than equal to 5. So the loop stops and the final output will come this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now let's compare the two loops for and while. Now the while loop is condition control. It continues making until a condition becomes false. While the for loop is a sequence control. It automatically goes through every item in a sequence such as list, a string, or range. We usually use a while loop when we do not know how many times the loop should run. For example, waiting for the user to enter the correct password. On the other hand, we use a for loop when we already know the number of iterations. For example, printing numbers from 1 to 10. The while loop checks the condition before every iteration, while the for loop automatically handles each value in the sequence. The while loop is more flexible, but if we forget to update the condition, it can create an infinite loop, which is a programming mistake. Now, so remember the simple rule. Use a for loop when the number of repetition is known. Use a while loop when the number of repetition is unknown and depends on a condition. Now, moving on to the next slide. Hope this slide is clear. Now, let's learn about two very useful loops control statement in Python. Break statement and continue statement. Both are used inside loop, but they work differently. The break statement completely stops the loop, while the continue statement skips the current iteration and moves to the next one. Let's understand each of them one by one. So break statement. First, let's discuss about this break statement. The purpose of the break statement is to terminate the loop immediately when a specific condition is met. As soon as Python encounters the break statement, it exits the loop and continues with first statement after the loop. Like, look at this program. For I in range 1 to 6, if then indentation, if I is equal to 3, break int I. Now let's execute it step by step. The loop starts with I equal to 1. Since 1 is not equal to 3, the break statement is skipped and the Python prints 1. Now I becomes 2. Again 2 is not equal to 3, so Python prints 2. Now I becomes 3. This time the condition I equal to 3 met. It is true. So Python executes the break statement and it the loop immediately exits, so the remaining values 4 and 5 are never processed. Therefore, the final output will be 1 and 2. Now, let's understand the continuous statement. Unlike the break, the continuous statement does not stop the loop. Instead, it skips only the current iteration and continues with the next one. Now, look at this program. For I in range 1 to 6, if I equal to 3, continue print I. The loop starts with 1, so Python prints 1. Then it prints 2. Now, when I becomes 3, the conditions become I equal to 3, this condition becomes true. Now the condition is true, so Python executes the continuous statement and nothing is printed at the place of 3. You can see here nothing is printed. The 3 is skipped. Now the loop then continues to loops then continue further. It will check now 4 and print 4, check 5, then it prints 5. Now it will check 6. No, here it is 6. It will check until 5 only. So the final output will be 1, 2, 4, and 5. Notice that loop never stopped. It only skipped out the number 3. Now what's the difference between break and continue? Break completely exits the loop, while continue skips only the current iteration. After break, the loop never runs again, but after continue, the loop continues normally with the next iteration. A simple trick to remember them is break is equal to stop the loop, continue is equal to skip one iteration and continue the loop. Both statements are useful when we want more control over loop's behavior. In the next slide, we will learn about another useful statement in Python called the pass statement, which is used as a placeholder when we don't want to write code immediately. Thanks. Now let's learn about another Python statement called the pass statement. So what is the pass statement? The pass statement is a null statement. This means it does not nothing when Python executes. But even though it does nothing, it is very useful because it helps us to write valid Python code when we don't have any code to write yet. So why is pass used? This is the common question because pass is a null statement, so why it is used? If we write an if statement, a loop or a function, Python accepts at least one statement inside it. If we leave the block empty, Python gives an error. To avoid this error, we use the pass statement. It works as a placeholder, meaning it tells Python there is no code here right now, but I will add it later. It is especially used while planning a program or writing incomplete code. Using pass also keeps the structure of our program code correct and error-free. So remember, pass means nothing to do for now. Now, let's look at these examples using pass in different places. So first example is def greet pass. Here in this example, we have created a function called greet. We have not written its code yet, so we use pass. No code is written here, so pass is used here. Python accepts this function without any error. Later we can replace pass with actual code. Now the second example. This loops run 5 times. However, since the body contains only pass, nothing happened during each iteration. The loop simply finishes without providing any output. Sometimes we can see here in our example 3, we create a class first and plan to add attribute later. Until then, we use pass. In for example, it's an if statement. If the condition becomes true, Python executes pass, which means it does nothing and moves to the next statement. Now, the placeholder concept. So what is a placeholder? A placeholder is something temporarily keeps a place until the real content is added. Think of it like writing a sticky note and say work in progress. Similarly, the pass statement tells Python, I'll write the actual code later. Even though pass does nothing, it keeps our code clean, valid, and ready for future updates. In short, remember these points. Pass does nothing, but it is used when Python requires a statement, but we have no code to write yet. Pass statement works as a placeholder. It can be used inside functions, loops, classes, or any conditional statements. Now, in the next slide, we will continue learning about the nested loops. So, moving on to the next slide. Now, let's learn about nested loops. So, what is a nested loop? A nested loop simply means a loop inside another loop. The loop on outside is called the outer loop, and the loop inside is called inner loop. The most important thing to remember is that for every iteration of the outer loop, the inner loop runs completely. Let's understand this step by step. Suppose the outer loop runs 5 times. For each of those 5 iterations, the inner loop also executes completely. This means the inner loop starts from the beginning every time the outer loop moves to its next iteration. Nested loops are commonly used for programs involving like printing patterns, multiplication table, matrices, row and columns. You can think of it like a table. The outer loop controls the rows and the inner loop controls the columns. Now let's understand this program. You can see the program. So the program is equal to 5, then the outer loop, inner loop, print statement, and the last print statement. First we create a variable called rows and set its value to 5. So now the outer loop is for I in range 1, 2 rows plus 1. This loop runs 5 times, so it controls the number of rows. Inside it, we have another row. This is the inner loop. It prints a star according to the current row. Notice the statement print star and equal to, you can see this is a space. Python prints the next star on the same line with a space. After the inner loop finishes, we write this print, and you can see it is blank here, nothing is written here. This prints a black line and moves the cursor to the next row. Without this statement, all the stars would appear on a single line. Now let's see how this program works. During the first iteration, I is equal to 1. The inner loop runs only once, so the output will be only a single star as you can see here. During the second iteration, I equal to 2, the inner loop runs twice, and then you can see 2 star. Similarly, when I equal to 3, 3 star, I equal to 4, 4 star, and I equal to 5, 5 star. So the complete output becomes something like this. This happens because the inner loop depends on the value of the outer loop. Always remember this rule. The inner loop finishes all of its iteration before the outer loop moves to the next iteration. Nested loops may look a little difficult at first, but with practice, they become very easy. They are widely used for patterns, matrices, tables, games, and many real-world programming problems. In the upcoming slide, we will practice loops with some interesting example to strengthen our understanding. Now let's apply what we learned in creating a simple program. In the example, we build a multiplication table generator. A multiplication table is something we learned in our school. Instead of writing every multiplication manually, Python can generate the complete table automatically using a for loop. This is a perfect example of how loops save time and reduce repetitive work. What the program does, let's understand. First, it takes a number as input from the user. Next, it uses a for loop to repeat calculations from 1 to 10. During each iteration, the program multiplies the entered number by current value of the loop. Finally, it prints the multiplication table in neat and readable form. This is much faster than writing 10 print statements separately. Now, understand the code. First, we write this num equal to int input. This line asks the user to enter a number. This input functions always return text, so we use int to convert it into an integer. The entered value is stored in the variable num. So now comes the loop. For I in range 1 to 11. Here the variable I starts from 1 and goes up to 11 minus 1, which is 10. Remember, in Python, the range is not included, so range 1 to 11 generates 1 to 10 only. Inside the loop, we write print num, then this sign, multiplication sign, I equal to num into I. For every iteration, the value of I changes, so the multiplication result also changes automatically. Suppose the user enters 7, so during the first iteration I is 1, so output will become 7 into 1 equal to 7. For second iteration, output will be 7 into 2 equal to 14. Similarly, you can see the whole table is printed. So how it works? Notice that the loop repeats 10 times. In every iteration, the value of I changes. The multiplication num into I is calculated, then the result is printed in a clean, readable format. This is a great example of automation. Instead of writing 10 separate multiplication statements, we write only a few lines of codes. How key takeaway. This example shows how loops are used in real life to automate repetitive tasks. The same concept can also be used to generate number series, list reports, patterns, and many other useful programs. The more you practice writing programs like this, the better you will understand how it works in Python. Now, let's move to our next slide and practice another program using the loops. Now, let's practice some more examples what we have learned about the for loop. The best way to understand programming is by writing and running simple program yourself. In the slide, we have two easy examples. Let's understand both of them. So the first example is how to print welcome to Python 5 times. First, look at the code. Here, the loop runs from 1 to 5. You can see 6 is written, but I told you that the range does not include 6, so it executes 5 times. Inside the loop, we simply print the message welcome to Python. You can see inside the loop, we have printed the message welcome to Python. Since the loop repeats 5 times, the same message is displayed 5 times. Notice that we are not using the value of I, instead the print statement. The variable I is only controlling how many times the loop runs. This example shows that loops are not only used with number, they can also repeat any task, such as displaying a message, calling a function, or performing calculations. Now you can see here the output welcome to Python is printed 5 times. Now let's look at the second example. This is the example is for printing numbers from 1 to 10. Same for I in range 1 to 11. Print I. This time range 1 to 11 generate from 1 to 10. During every iteration, the value of I changes automatically. First it becomes 1, then 2, 3, and it will go until 10. The print I statement prints the current value of I. So the output will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 till 10. So this is one of the most common uses of the for loops in Python. Now try changing the range values yourself, and you can see that range 1 to 4 prints only 1 to 3, range 5 to 11 prints 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you can change the range yourself. By experiencing with different values, you will understand how the range function works. Now, practice is the key to learn programming. The more program you write, the more comfortable you become in the loops. Now, start with a simple example like this and then gradually move on more advanced program. Now, your work is that all the program here we have done with for loops. You have to do yourself this, and then you have to do all of these programs by using of while loops. Same programs, same questions, but you have to do this with while loops. Now let's continue to the next slide. Hope this is clear to you. for a quick quiz. Let's check how much you remember from the lecture. Try to answer each question by yourself before looking at the answer. So the first question is, which loop is used when the number of iterations is unknown? The options are while loop, for loop, do while loop, infinite loop. Take a few seconds and think about it. I hope you have solved the problem. Now the correct answer is option number B, for loop. We use a for loop when we already know how many times we want the loop to run. For example, printing numbers from 1 to 10 or displaying a message 5 times like we have done in the previous program. Now the second question. Which loops run until a condition becomes false? The options are for loop, while loop, nested loop, for else loop. Think for a second. I hope you got the answer. Now the correct answer is option number B, the while loop. A while loop keeps running as long as its condition is true. When the condition becomes false, the loop stops automatically. Now coming to question number third. What is the use of break statement? The options are it skips the current iteration, it terminates the loop completely, it goes to the next iteration, it restarts the loop. Now look at these options and try to think what will be the correct answer. Pause the video and tell the correct answer. So the correct answer is B. It terminates the loop completely. Whenever a break statement is executed, the loop immediately ends and the program continues with the next statement after the loop. Now let's revise the difference between break and continue. The break statement completely stops the loop. The continue statement does not stop the loop. Instead, it skips the current iteration and moves to the next iteration. This is one of the most important differences you should remember. Now, understanding loops and loop control statements is very important because they are used in almost every Python program. If you can understand for, while, break, continue, and pass, you have built a strong foundation in Python programming. Now, hope this lecture is clear to you. I am moving to the final slide. Thanks. Now, that's bring us to the end of lecture number 7. Today we learned about one of the most important topics in Python programming, which is loops. I hope I all the things I have told you in the previous slides, you are clear to all those slides. If you are not clear, you can go back and watch it again. So we first started by understanding what loops are and why they are useful. Then we learned about the for loop, the range function, the while loop. After that, we discussed the break, the continue, and pass statement and saw how they control the flow of a program. We also explored nested loops, solved real-life examples, practiced simple programs, and tested our knowledge with a quick quiz. Remember, loop helps us write shorter, cleaner, and more efficient programs by avoiding repeated code. My advice is simple. Don't just watch this lecture. Open your uh, Python editor and Python editor like VS Code and try every example yourself. The more you practice, the better you will perform. If you did not understand any topic in this lecture, don't worry. As I told you, watch the lecture again, pause the video whenever needed, and practice examples yourself. Programming becomes easier with regular practice. And yes, if I made any mistake while explaining something, I sincerely apologize. Please let me know in the comments so I can improve in the future lectures. Your feedback is really helps me create better content. Thank you so much for learning Python with me. So Thank you all of you. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep coding. See you in the next Python lecture.